small, you seem so strong. My arms will hold you, keep you safe and warm. This bond between us can't be broken. I will be here, don't you cry. Whatever you do, I'll do it too. Show me everything and tell me how. It all means something, and yet nothing to me. Put your faith in what you most believe in. Two worlds, one family. Trust your heart, let fate decide to guide these lives we see. Shooby-doop, dabby-dap, dooby-doop, dabba-da-da-doo-dap. Shooby-doop, dabby-dap, dooby-doop, dabba-da-da-doo-dap. Do-wop, she-do. Softly tread the sand below your feet now. Tell me more, please show me. Two worlds, one family. 'Cause you'll be in my heart. Yes, you'll be in my heart. From this day on, now and forevermore. You'll be in my heart. No matter what they say, you'll be here in my heart. Always. To guide these lives we see. About these strangers like me. Do what she do.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Goots' Disney Pod, and we are here at the end of the 90s. I'm your host, Ray Goots. Today's movie is Tarzan, and joining me via satellite is the comedy community's foremost Tarzan expert, John Trumbull. John, how are you today?
I'm good, Ray. That was quite an intro.
Quite intro. Before
Thank
we
you very
started,
much.
I said to John, I'm having you on because you're an expert on Tarzan. He goes, well, I'm not really an expert. And I go, well, in the comedy community of the tri-state area, you are the foremost You're the only comedian I ever met that actually likes Tarzan. So
Yeah, well, there you go. I'll own that.
not that it comes up in conversation. You're not ever sitting in the green room with David telling him like, hey, Dave, do you like Tarzan? Like, what's your opinion?
Yeah. It's not. I mean, it's you and I. We're both geeks, and
Yeah.
you kind of get into the habit when you're a geek, and you just kind of assume most people aren't geeks like you, so you don't lead with the geek stuff.
No, and especially like, this is like uber. This is like nursing home geek stuff. Like these characters that did he become before Superman?
Tarzan, yeah, he was introduced in 1912, if I remember correctly.
Oh yeah, wow.
Because he was a character in the pulps.
Mm-hmm. He was a pulp and then the novel and stuff. Yeah, he had a novel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Edgar Rice Burroughs, he just write like a few chapters in the pulp every month, or maybe it appeared as a full length thing. I'm honestly not sure. This is why I'm not a total.
Well, I think the
expert.
first, because I did a Wikipedia. The first, I think the novel, the first, it was an actual book, but maybe I'm wrong on that.
Yeah.
But what was I gonna say to you about shit? See, I hold like whether it's Tarzan or the Shadow or Doc Savage, or Flash Gordon, I hold a lot of those characters in reverence just because they're so old. And I'm not a huge fan, but I always feel like there should be something going on with these characters just because they're part of our history.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't give a shit about these characters anymore. Like, it's hard to get someone, invested in Tarzan, I think, at this point in our lives.
Yeah, because I don't know. There was a term I heard for this recently, which is like a dead fandom, where if like something, it's not translated into new media or interpreted in a new way for a new generation, it doesn't really pick up any new fans. And like a lot of people know Tarzan, but I don't know how many people are real Tarzan fans.
Yeah, I was always like interested in Tarzan, but I was never like a huge Tarzan fan. But I always liked the fact that something was going on with him.
Yeah.
And now it just feels like they did that 2015 movie, and right away every critic called it racist. I think before they even saw it.
Yeah, because it's kind of got that white savior trope baked into it.
Mm-hmm. That's how I knew you liked Tarzan, because you went to go see that movie, right?
Yeah, I did, and I like that movie.
Yeah, I've heard some really good things from people who saw it. They're like, this is a sleeper hit. Like,
I thought it was really cool because it took a fair amount of like the book Tarzan, but it also like mixed in some real history with it. And I thought that like the Samuel L. Jackson's character, who I can't remember the name of, I think he was named Washington or something like that, but he was like a real guy.
okay.
And
cool.
I was like, oh, that's really interesting. So
I didn't realize that Tarzan in the book, the first book, moves back to America to like his father's farm or something, almost like Rambo. Almost like
yeah, well, like in the books, like Tarzan's family comes from England, and they set sail from England. They go to Africa, and they're marooned there.
Mm-hmm.
And Jane is actually American.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because it always seems these characters are English, and then I didn't realize they're actually American.
Yeah, a lot of the movies they make them English for some reason. I guess just to emphasize the aristocratic thing.
That's hilarious. I guess for the aristocratic thing, but they're all American. Did you ever see the movie? Didn't Casper Van Dien, the guy from Starship Troopers, do a Tarzan movie? Am I wrong?
He did. I think it was called Tarzan and the Lost City, and that was probably around the same time as the Disney Tarzan. I think that was like 98, 99.
Yeah, or maybe 90. Well, this was 99. This came out the summer of Phantom Menace.
Right.
So I think that came out in 97.
I never saw the Casper Van Dien Tarzan movie, so I don't know if it's any good or not.
And how was the one with Highlander? He did one too.
The Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan. I saw that movie when I was like 12 because it came out in like 1984, and I really dug that movie.
Okay, a lot of people say it's really good, but nobody like seems to talk about it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it all the way through in ages, so I don't know how well it holds up. But I think there's a lot of interesting stuff in there.
Okay, that's one I should check out.
I mean, that's the first place I saw Christopher Lambert. It was like years later when I finally saw Highlander. So for me, I think Christopher Lambert, I think of him as Tarzan.
Well, I think that was the role where he was discovered. I'm surprised he doesn't get more things. By the way, that's a guy who like is kind of stuck in direct-to-DVD hell.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm surprised like nobody's ever like stunt cast him in some like really good movie. You know, like every now and then they'll pull like a B movie actor and put him in a good movie. I'm surprised like Quentin Tarantino or nobody's ever pulled him out of anything.
Yeah, I don't know. He had kind of a strong accent, as I recall, right?
Yeah, but he's really, not that this is not a high bar, but he's really good at Mortal Kombat. I mean,
I haven't seen the Mortal Kombat movie, so
I guess maybe he's just happy doing conventions, like as the Highlander.
It's a good steady gig, and if there's interest in, you can get the people to come out. Yeah, why not?
I mean, you think he would have got the roles Dave Carradine used to get after he killed himself, but I don't know. But let's get into you a little bit, John. Let's get into your background, John. How long did you do stand-up comedy?
In the before time.
Yes.
In the pre-pandemic world. Mm-hmm. I started getting into stand-up comedy. I first really got serious about it in like 2011.
Okay.
Which I can't believe it's that long ago, but yeah, and I kind of got into it gradually. I did community theater, and then a little after that, I did improv comedy. I was in an improv troupe for about 5 years. Mm-hmm. And then I just started thinking like, well, could I be professionally funny? Could I be professionally funny on my own? And I just tried it. I liked it. I stuck with it. And here I am quarantined at home, dreams do come true.
Yeah, it's funny because that's just how I led the podcast. And then just so everybody knows, because, I recorded a ton of these Disney episodes the first week of the pandemic. And I gave away the date because I was like, oh, this will be over by the time these episodes come out. And
yeah.
Nope. So just so everybody knows, it's May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, actually. This is how we're celebrating. It's May 5th. The pandemic is still going strong. No end in sight. So we're doing this via Zoom. And before times, people used to come by my house or go to their place to record live, but we're doing this via Zoom with John. So that's why, John, let me ask you a question. Would you consider doing Zoom comedy?
I haven't, and I don't know if that would work for me or not, because I mean, so much of stand-up comedy, you feed off that audience reaction, and you
Yeah.
can't really get that on Zoom. So I don't
I
know. Have you tried it?
I did. I'm supposed to be doing one at 7, and I'm ready to commit suicide at the end of this. I this podcast might go through at 9 o'clock and be like, I was interviewing the president. I couldn't get off. I tried it once last weekend, and it's rough. It just feels like you're ranting in your living room. It doesn't
Yeah.
feel natural. It feels like they respond. Here's the secret with Zoom comedy is that they respond to jokes. They respond to boom. You can't really
Yeah.
tell a story. But I almost feel like I should be ranting. But then if you're ranting, I don't know how people can find it funny. And there's other comedians on there. You don't want them to think that you've lost it or you don't know. But at the same time, you're right. I don't think my style translates well to this. I just feel like I'm yelling in my living room.
Yeah. And that's what podcasting's for.
Yeah, I like doing this because we can yell about, DC and Marvel on this thing. It feels much more natural.
Right. I mean, I've been I do a podcast with my friend and fellow comic Darren Patterson. We do a podcast called the SNL Nerds, and we've been doing it remotely for the last 8 weeks. But other than that, it doesn't feel that different. It's easier.
I'm enjoying podcasting like this. This is a lot of fun. I'm actually enjoying this. I mean, if I knew it was this easy, I wouldn't have spent $700 on podcast equipment when I started this fucking thing. But I just would have gave rid of my Disney Plus password and said, go nuts. But, I'm enjoying it. John, tell me about your childhood. How was your childhood? What were you into?
Let's see. I'd say like the big thing that defined my childhood was I moved around a fair amount. My mom got remarried when I was like 6. And then we moved right after that. We moved from Minnesota to Washington, D.C. And then like 5 years after that, we moved to Alabama. 5 years after that, we moved to Tennessee. A couple of years after that, I went to college in Indiana. And then I ultimately came up to New Jersey to go to art school here.
Okay.
So
you went to the Joe Kubert Art School.
Yeah. I went to the Kubert School. Class of 97.
Oh, dope.
And I think that was a lot of how I became such a fan of comic books and Pulp Fiction type stuff, because like those are the friends you take with you when you go when you move to a new place. Moving around like once every 5 years, it's almost like a recipe to have like an introverted nerdy kid.
Yeah, and especially like if you read a teen book, like I can tell why the X-Men, like I'm rereading now all the early X-Men stuff on my tablet from the 80s, and I can tell why the X-Men are so popular, because they really do feel like a family, and you really do feel like Chris Claremont was very good at making these characters all feel like a family every issue. A dysfunctional family and a diverse family, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But it does feel like a family. So if you're moving around and you don't really have a connection with people, you keep losing. At least you have that connection to these characters are always going to be there, whether they're Superman,
right? And
unless Zack Snyder shows up and shoots them all in the fucking head. That's
sure. Yeah, I mean that's always a possibility.
Yeah.
I mean, the X-Men in particular, and kind of Spider-Man too, because they're both very persecuted type of characters. It really speaks to like if you feel alienated in your life, you're like, oh, these characters are like me, but they persevere,
and they find each other. Well, but with the X-Men, they find each other.
Yeah.
Which is
it's kind of like how you have a community of like fellow geeks or fellow outcasts. You find your people.
Yeah, it was so funny because like when I first found the internet, I was like, oh, I'll connect with comic fans, and this was like in 96, 97. And were you what you start talking about like geek stuff on the internet?
Let's see. I got online. I think it was like 98 and 99.
Okay.
As I recall, and
I think it was a little bit more civil around then. I was like they were putting out Onslaught books when I first discovered. And the internet back then, the AOL message boards, you could like interact directly with DC editors and stuff. Like it was very good. Even the DC editors everyone was very mean and very cruel on those boards. So kind of like turned me off talking to with people about comic books and stuff on the internet.
Well, I mean, it's the weird thing about the internet is like you can be real sarcastic unless your sarcasm's like really over the top, it might not read as sarcasm. So sometimes people take things not in the spirit in which they're intended. Like you might be playfully.
Well, yeah, but also I feel like it was like a very new tool to interact with people. And
Yeah.
like back then, I feel like if let's say you were Dan Jurgens, you could tell a fan to go fuck himself, and
Yeah.
you're not going to get any pushback because nobody knows how to access this thing. You know, you
Mhm.
told someone to go fuck. Whereas now, if Scott Snyder told a fan suck his dick on Twitter, it would be front page news.
Yeah, there'd be like a comics blog that makes a big story or a big controversy out of
Yeah,
that.
because I remember one of the Superman editors was really rude to me, and I'm like, well, I was 15 back then. I'm like, dude, you can't be that mean to 15-year-olds who are buying your books.
Well, I mean, but did they know that you were 15?
Probably not. No.
Yeah.
No, and there was no way to prove it. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I see a lot more fans come at pros than I see pros go at fans, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
I think I said something. I didn't like the book. I didn't like the issue that was out that week.
yeah.
And he wrote something like, "You're a fucking idiot," like the editor. This was in the AOL message boards, which are
Right.
probably gone.
Right. But I would bet that was probably sarcastic. I mean, I've never met Dan Jurgens, but
No, it wasn't Dan Jurgens. It was one of the editors.
Oh, okay.
It was one of the editors. I just used him because I remember he's only Superman. It was Roger. I don't know if Roger Stewart was writing it back then, but it was one of the editors. It was like an assistant editor.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't Dan Jurgens. No.
Oh,
I don't think he knew how to work the internet back then.
Who knows?
I don't know. Were you into cartoons as well? Were cartoons a big part of your childhood?
Yeah. I mean, that helped foster my geekhood too. I like Super Friends was still on when I was a kid, so I loved that. There was the Filmation Batman cartoon, also a Filmation Tarzan cartoon. So that was probably my first exposure to Tarzan. That would be like late 70s, early 80s. I was watching those. Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
That's
I mean,
great.
all that stuff. There was a fair amount of superhero and adventure type stuff.
And you're writing a book right now about the Batman animated series. Is that correct?
Well, I'm doing it all on the DC animated universe in general. I wrote a thing for Back Issue magazine from Tomorrow's Publishing, and in back issue number 99, this came out in 2017, so it was the 25th anniversary of Batman the Animated Series, and I put together a big oral history of Batman the Animated Series. I interviewed as many people from that show as I could, and I got most of the big people like Bruce Timm, Paul Dini, Alan Burnett, Kevin Conroy. There were a few people I wasn't able to get in the article, but I've kept up interviewing people since, and I want to cover all the shows like Batman, Superman, Batman Beyond, Justice League, Static Shock.
Is that a project? Because that's part of it.
Yeah, I mean, Static Shock, it's weird. It kind of got grandfathered in through the crossovers that it did.
Yeah.
But it wasn't originally intended as part of the same continuity. So.
Yeah, Static Shock. Oh, yeah, Static. I've never seen Static Shock. I've never seen a single episode. That's a character I feel like they missed the boat on. There's so many people younger than me say how much they love that character, and he hasn't had a book I think in 10 years, and he's not on the CW shows.
A book when they introduced the New 52, which is going on. Yeah, it's going on 10 years ago.
Yeah, they canceled it after issue 7 or something.
Yeah, I don't think the new version lasted for all that long.
Yeah, which is weird to me because people really love that character.
Yeah, I mean, I think he really spoke to a lot of people. From what I understand, the main reason that show ended was it just wasn't doing enough in toy sales. But
I never saw any Static Shock toys, that's weird that, you know what I mean? Like, I never even saw the toys.
I think they either weren't making that much, or the toys that they made weren't making enough of a dent in the market. But like so much of this stuff is just driven by the merchandising, and if it's not doing great on the merchandising, they're not going to keep doing the shows.
I know. Well, you know what? To that point, like I think like some Justice League action got canceled for the same reason, and every Justice League act. I bought the DVD set. I've never. You know what? Also, Cartoon Network had that on like 7 in the morning.
It was tough to watch. Yeah, I'd have to record it and then watch it later that day. That's
the same. I had Disney XD for 20 years, and the Marvel cartoons would also be on like at weird times with no advertising. And I'm like, well, then why are you even making these if you're not going to tell me when these are on?
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, there's always some weird, convoluted reason that stuff happens. Like maybe there's a regime change at the network, and like if that show was started under somebody else's regime, they don't want to push that other guy's show.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, well, we'll just bury this at 2 a.m. or something.
Yeah, they would air, I think one time they had like the Avengers cartoon at 6 a.m, but like the rest of the day, they were like just these awful live action series reruns on Disney XD. And I'm like, why? Like, Avengers is the #1 movie in the world. Why are you not showing the Avenger cartoon more often so I actually see it? Like, if it was on like in the afternoon, I would sit down and watch it, but it's never on. It's on like.
I mean, that's part of why Batman the Animated Series was so successful, because it was on like 4:30 in the afternoon. So you're getting kids after school, you're getting college kids watching it. You could have adults recording it and taping it. So you got this whole big cross section of the audience,
Yeah. And the same thing with the X-Men cartoon. It was on like 11 a.m. on Saturdays, and then they also started airing that at like 3 o'clock, 3:30 on the weekdays, which is why so many people remember that one. And then these other cartoons nobody remembers, and it's because, well, they were at weird times with no promotion.
Yeah, exactly.
Even the Justice League had a weird. I think they did Saturdays at 6.
Yeah, they had a few different times, and I remember that the last few years it seemed like it was being kind of buried by Cartoon Network. I know they were airing like 2 episodes back to back for the last chunk of episodes.
Yeah, and I remember like the last episode aired, and like nobody even knew that it aired. Like, I think like because I was on like some message board, and they were like, "Yeah, they just aired." I think it was Elegy, which is I think it's the greatest thing. That episode where Bruce reveals to Terry McGinnis he's his dad. Well, he doesn't reveal it; he just finds out. I think that's the best thing they've ever done in that universe.
I was kind of mixed on that. I wasn't nuts about it largely because it was an episode of Justice League, and it was possibly going to be the last episode of Justice League. And I was like, well, why are you doing an epilogue to Batman Beyond?
Yeah.
I want to see a finale of Justice League. It was like in like the last episode of Enterprise when they brought in Riker and Troy from Next Generation.
Okay.
I'm like, I don't want to see you tie up another show. I want to see you tie up this show.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reason why I liked it is I feel like the character we follow in that universe is Batman. And I like the fact that in this universe, Batman kind of had not a happy ending, but like he got his family back. Like he went through, like I always feel like the Batman character is trying to get his family back. And I kind of feel like he had like a happy ending. Like he kind of got what he wanted. He didn't die in an alleyway or become a villain or something ridiculous,
Yeah, it's funny because when they did that episode, and they did that as part of the Justice League show, as I said, Alan Burnett, who was one of the producers and main creative forces behind Batman Beyond, he wasn't involved with the Justice League show. So when they did that, it wasn't something that Alan Burnett would have been on board with, and he's pretty outspoken. He's like, yeah, I didn't like that idea. I really hate that idea.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So I I just think it's interesting that one of the big creative forces behind the DC animated universe is like, yeah, no, I really hate that idea.
So what he wanted, like Batman to die or something, or?
I think it's just not what he would have done.
Okay.
I mean, he wasn't in the mix at that point, so he wasn't participating in the Justice League show. So
okay.
What
do you think of the real ending?
What? Say that again. I'm not quite following it.
The real ending, the ending where they all fought Darkseid, because that was the real last episode.
Yeah, that was. I mean, that's a great episode. I mean, it's just. And that was done by like Bruce Timm and James Tucker and the team that was doing the Justice League show. It's just that Alan Burnett wasn't in the mix anymore by the time it got to Justice League.
Okay. So was Disney a part of your childhood?
Yeah, Disney was a part of my childhood. This would still be in the years when they would re-release the Disney movies in the theaters every few years. It wasn't quite the home video market quite yet. So you'd go to the theater and you'd see Pinocchio or Snow White or whatever. And so I grew up with a lot of Disney movies. And then I kind of tapered off of them when I was in my teens, and then got back to them during like the Disney Renaissance after like Little Mermaid and all that.
So what was one of your favorites? Little Mermaid one of your favorites? What was one of your favorites?
Little Mermaid's really good. I mean, Beauty and the Beast is great. I mean, that was nominated for Best Picture, for crying out loud. I remember liking Hunchback of Notre Dame a lot, but I haven't seen that in ages. So I'm not as fanatical about Disney as I am about some other things.
Okay. Yeah, no, I wasn't either. My mom was. That's kind of how I got into this. My mom used to buy all the movies, and whenever we upgraded, from VHS to DVD to Blu-ray, we would rebuy them. And her goal one day was to own all of them. And after she died, I'm like, oh, I'm missing 10. And so this summer I went and bought them. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to watch all of them. When I start watching them, I'm like, this would be good. Because I was looking for a hook for a podcast. This would actually be a good idea for the podcast, Hold on one second. I'm sorry.
No problem. I heard the sound.
Yeah, this is well, sorry guys. They're still doing comedy stuff during this. Once I stop recording this podcast. Sorry. I'm proud of you, John. John, let me ask you. Sorry, I'm trying to do a Monday Night Good Zoom show. And one of those comics is like, "Hey, I can't make this date. I'm like, where do you have to go? You can't make the date. What do you have to watch Facts of Life? Like, what do you have to do? That
he's booked on another Zoom comedy show.
Yeah. It's like I'm like, okay, we'll work it out once I finish. But anyway, so
you don't even have to take a cab to another club.
I know. What do you have to do? Okay, whatever. So have you seen Tarzan before today? This version?
Yes, I hadn't seen it in probably 15, 20 years, probably since not long after it was released, but I did see it in the theaters back in the day.
Oh, okay. What did you think of it back then?
I really liked it, and I rewatched it, and spoiler alert, I still really like it. It's a really good movie, and it's a really great looking movie. The animation is amazing.
Can I just tell you, I've never seen this movie until this. Oh, not this summer. I saw it in January, February is when I saw it, and I was blown away at how good the animation was. It looks better than the 3D animation we're seeing nowadays.
Yeah.
It's incredible looking. I wish they would go back to 2D. I just feel like with this movie, they were kind of making a real breakthrough.
Yeah.
And they went to 3D because of Toy Story and Toy Story 2. And I love those movies, but sometimes I think those movies are the best and worst thing to happen in animation.
There is nothing like a great hand-drawn 2D animated movie.
Yeah.
And I think this movie really has the best of both worlds in it. I mean, the backgrounds are just, they look like paintings. I mean, they are 2D paintings, but they kind of melded them together with this process called deep canvas.
Yes.
Which it avoided the Scooby-Doo problem where it's they're running through the mansion or something and it's well, what door is going to open and have something spring out behind it? Well, it's that door that looks different from the rest of the background. And you don't have that here. So it's just really almost seamless.
Yeah, I mean the scenes where they based a lot of his movements on pro skaters. Yeah, and I think snowboarders. When he's going through the trees, it was also kind of very Spider-Man-like.
Yeah, he's surfing through the trees, and it's great.
It's great. It just looks phenomenal. And even the beginning, I gotta tell you, this movie grabs you by the throat as soon as it starts.
Yeah,
it really has a great start. I mean, just the ship being shipwrecked. The gorillas losing her daughter. So the gorilla loses. So Tarzan's parents get shipwrecked on the island. They build a little house. They get killed by a cougar. The cougar then kills, what's the mother's name? I'm sorry. I should pull up.
Kala.
Kala's kid.
Yeah.
And then she hears Tarzan crying. She goes and gets Tarzan. But the music, I think this was a great use of Phil Collins.
Yeah.
I didn't know Phil Collins had this in him.
The Phil Collins songs work really well, and I like that they made the decision to have the Phil Collins songs play over instead of having the characters burst into song like they do in most Disney movies.
Yeah, and I think the only time they ever actually do that is when Nala sings him to sleep with "You'll Be in My Heart." But it was much better having him narrate. But that opening song, "Two Worlds," was just so fucking awesome. And it's and just the orchestra, and when she finds Tarzan's house and the music, the way the music swells, because it's the legend and he's going to be raised by, but it just gives it so much importance, Yeah. It's a beautiful
it really
start.
does you right off the bat. And I like that they're telling the story mostly just through the visuals, and the song's kind of giving you like that emotional counterpoint too.
Yeah. Here's where the movie falls for me, though. I love the movie, but this part I think hurts it. Because the animation is beautiful, a lot of performances are touching, the music is great, the just so much of it works. Rosie O'Donnell.
Yes, same.
Kills this fucking movie. Stops so it dead in its track.
He is so annoying in this movie.
Oh my god, is she awful? I'm sitting here. I'm like into this. I'm like, this is. I've never seen this movie before. I'm like, this is. I think this might be the greatest Disney movie ever made. And then Rosie O'Donnell opens up her fucking mouth. And then I'm like, and now I know why Trump won the election. I know why Trump won the election.
She is very grating in this movie, and that trashing the camp sequence where it just the apes find the humans or the explorers camp, and they don't know what anything is, so they're just like wrecking everything, and then it's like a number out of Stomp all of a sudden.
Yeah, and it's very different music than the rest of the movie.
Yeah, and it just has nothing to do with anything, and I'm just like, why is this here? It just makes the movie stop dead, you know?
Yeah, I think it was supposed to be like their version of Hakuna Matata, but it doesn't work at all.
Like, supposedly, Rosie O'Donnell like put her foot down. She was like, "Oh, I gotta have a song if I'm gonna be in a Disney movie. I gotta have a song."
And this is when she had all that power with that TV series.
Yeah, she had a lot of clout at the time, I believe. So,
is every female comic who has a daytime talk show a monster? Like Ellen?
I don't know. Maybe
Ellen apparently burns children alive. Like, have you seen the Twitter thread? I should tag you in it.
Yes,
Twitter thread.
I've seen some stuff about supposedly heinous stuff that Ellen has done, particularly when she's been doing her show at home and she's got like a non-union crew doing it, and
but also like stuff she's done to waiters, like she's gotten waiters fired, and it just
yeah.
And I heard Rosie O'Donnell's like the same type, but like at least Ellen was good in her Disney performances. I mean,
I don't know. I don't know what Rosie O'Donnell is like these days. But she and Howard Stern have made up. I know.
Okay. Well, I feel like Howard Stern made up with everybody. I feel like Howard Stern went through like this not a midlife crisis, but a 50-something crisis where he was just like.
Yeah, I've read excerpts from his recent book, and it's just wow. He's really grown as a person, and
well, I'll tell you what. If he wants to turn on her, we should show him Tarzan, because that'll make him be like, I take back all of my kind words I said about Rosie O'Donnell.
That's starting again.
Yeah. But I'll tell you who was really good. I liked Minnie Driver as Jane.
She's really good, yeah.
Really good. And Lance, who I think this is another guy who's very underrated. He should be in more things. Lance, I'm gonna mess up the last name. Henkerson, yes, as Kerchak. Yeah. I thought he was great.
Glenn Close, as Kala, as Tarzan's ape mother, she's really good. And she has an interesting connection to Tarzan, because in the Greystoke movie, you said you'd never seen that, right?
No. Okay.
So that the Greystoke movie was like Andie MacDowell's very first movie. She played Jane in it, and they were playing Jane as British, but Andie MacDowell had like a really strong Southern accent, so her British accent wasn't convincing apparently. So they had her dubbed for the whole movie, and they had Glenn Close dub her.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So it's weird that Glenn Close had a previous connection with Tarzan before she did this movie.
Whatchamacallit? What do you think of Wayne Knight? I thought he was an appropriate amount of comic relief.
Wayne Knight was good. He wasn't. They didn't overuse his character, and I thought he did what he had to do well. I discovered just doing research for this that. Did you find out who the original voice of Tantor the elephant was going to be?
No, who was it?
It was going to be Woody Allen.
Oh, okay. And was he like, no, I got to be an ant instead of an elephant?
Well, it was like Jeffrey Katzenberg, who like left Disney, apparently stole Woody Allen away to put him in Ants. And so Woody Allen dropped out of this movie.
Well, I think Ants was a starring role for him, right? He's the star of Ants.
Yeah, he is the main guy in Ants, so I guess I can see why, or maybe he was offered just a bigger payday.
The funniest thing is, I was watching Ghost the first time ever a few weeks ago, and I said to my friend goes, the villain in Ghost, has this guy ever been in anything else? And I looked up, and he's actually the voice of Tarzan in this.
Oh, yeah, Tony Goldwyn. Yeah,
Tony
sure.
Yeah, he He's not that good as the villain in Ghost. Have you seen Ghost lately?
Not lately. I didn't think much of Ghost at the time. I saw it probably sometime in the 90s. I think when it came to my college campus.
I can't believe they got nominated for Best Picture. I'm just shocked.
Did it get nominated for Best Picture?
Yeah, it got nominated for Best Picture. And
I
with
know Whoopi
Goodfellas
Goldberg
there was another movie. JF was JFK the same year? No,
yeah,
well, good.
It was like a 92, I think.
Yeah, Goodfellas was 1990. It was nominated with Goodfellas and Dances with Wolves.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you got to be fucking kidding me. This movie got nominated.
It's such a cheesy movie, man.
That is a movie that deserves a remake. But if I ever remade that movie, I would take out the whole plot, the action plot, because it doesn't work. I would just make it about a couple finding each other.
Yeah, and there's like he kills Patrick Swayze because of some insider trading thing or something.
Yeah, and it's very like it doesn't make any sense, and it drags the movie down. And there's only 4 characters in the movie, so you know it's not Demi Moore who hired him to shoot.
And it's probably not Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah, so it's this guy that hired the evil Puerto Rican man to shoot him.
Gee, it's the best friend. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? It'd be funny if they just brought in a character that nobody ever met. It was actually your dad who hired him. Like, I don't know.
But Whoopi Goldberg was really good in that movie, as I remember.
No, she is. And so's Patrick Swayze. You know who's not good? Demi Moore. She looks like she's about to fall asleep. The movie.
I don't remember much about her performance. I liked the things where he's in the subway and he's trying to like learn the rules of the ghost world.
Yeah, that guy was great. That guy, he was also Batman Returns.
Schiavelli, I think.
Yes.
Great character actor.
Yeah, and he wrote a bunch of. My mom had his cookbooks. He wrote a bunch of cookbooks.
He's in Batman Returns. He's in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Mm-hmm.
He was just one of those character actors. He had such a great face, and he was just always good in whatever he did. You know.
Yeah, but Ghost is a movie with a lot of good ideas, and every time it starts doing a good idea, I'm like, all right, here we go, and then it immediately goes into like an 80s, 90s movie action cliche, and I'm like, But it got nominated for Best Picture. What the fuck do I know? I never got nominated for.
I'd forgotten that.
Yeah. Oh, and the Unchained Melody scene. I mean, now I get why that song was so popular back then.
That was like a big revival for that song.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Whatchamacallit, I was going to ask you. To me, with this movie, this is my thing with the movie, is that I feel like Disney still didn't understand that they didn't need to have comic relief for every single scene. I think this movie would have worked a lot better as a straight drama.
Yeah.
I just don't know if they would have been able to sell toys, but
I think the most successful parts of the Disney Tarzan are the romantic parts and the action sequences.
The action. I thought the final sequence on the boat was very. What do you think of the villain?
Clayton. He was pretty good. I thought like with Clayton and with Jane's father, Professor Porter, I thought they were both very much in the Beauty and the Beast formula. Like Clayton is pretty much Gaston, I thought.
Yeah.
And Porter is like Belle's father, you know, the humorous, absent-minded professor type. So I was like, okay, well, it's a little bit of a Disney formula thing, but Clayton was pretty good. I wish he had a more interesting motivation than just, I want to get the gorillas. I want to hunt gorillas.
Yeah, I wish he did too. I wanted more insight into the humans. I kind of think it would have been better if the humans were going to try to like build something there in the jungle.
Yeah,
that's what I would have done. I don't know. It just seemed like. I also feel like they should have realized the guy was an asshole way sooner than they did. It kind of feels like at the last second, like, oh my god, this guy's a giant asshole. Oh my god, I have to kill this guy. You know?
Yeah. You never see him be like charming or anything. He's just like so villainous right from the word go.
Yeah. Oh, now I know why. They did the song "Trash in the Camp." NSYNC did the cover of it.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. So they probably were like, we need a song for NSYNC. I guess they couldn't sing "You'll Be in My Heart." So.
Oh, that's weird because it's like a scat number almost.
Yeah, I guess like somebody must have said we need a boy band. I mean, it was the late '90s.
Yeah, I mean they were huge then. So.
Wasn't their best song? I don't know anyone ever go like, hey, remember that NSYNC song from Disney?
Yeah, I think probably my favorite song from the movie was when what's the name of that song? When they're Stranger Like Me. I thought that was a really strong song when Tarzan's like learning about the human world and they've got the magic lantern slide projector.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a gorgeous sequence.
Yeah, that was a great sequence. Him learning all about human history. I thought that was great. This movie, I would have loved to have seen a sequel, and I know they did a sequel, but I don't think it's just more shit in the jungle, where he goes to England or America or what
Yeah.
have you. That would have been interesting to see these animators tackle that.
I was expecting that the first time I saw this movie. I was very surprised when they spent the entire movie in Africa.
Well, I think because they do so much. I think they did so much design work, and they did so much work designing how he moves on the trees. I think they wanted to like show that off as much as possible. You kind of lose that if you go into the city. Then it kind of becomes Hunchback or Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah,
You know what I
I
mean?
don't know. I would have liked them to play up the conflict between the two worlds a little more, because I mean that's the thing I find really interesting about Tarzan as a character.
Yeah.
I think you need a little of that both. It's like the comic book writer Len Wein. He had a great quote about Thor. He was like, "You can do all the stories you want in Asgard, but sooner or later you have to come back to Earth and take your lumps from the absorbing man." Which is just like what makes Thor work is like playing the grandiose mythological stuff against the earthbound stuff. And I think with Tarzan, you gotta contrast the jungle stuff with the civilization stuff.
Well, I almost feel like now they kind of lost that with Thor because they've kind of humaned him up so much.
Yeah.
In the movies that I think they kind of had to do it because I think the audiences were losing interest in classic Thor. But also, like you've made him veer so much to the comedic, almost like What We Do in the Shadows type of Thor.
Yeah,
it's going to be hard to ever pull him back into the grandiose Shakespearean God of Thunder.
That's true. Yeah, they leaned pretty hard into the humor in Thor Ragnarok, which I loved. But yeah, I wonder. Yeah, can he come back from this? I don't know.
Yeah, and I think I remember I heard that Chris Hemsworth he said to them, "You got to make this funnier. I can't."
Yeah.
It can't just be me being deadly serious the whole movie. And he delivered. He's really funny, Chris Hemsworth.
He's a great comedic actor, man.
Yeah.
Really funny. And
anyone else that wouldn't have worked making Thor like that.
And really, someone that good looking should not be that funny.
Yeah.
Someone that good looking should have just been coasting through life and not developed an interesting personality. But apparently he has.
Yeah, because there's a lot of scenes where, and my friend who's a Thor diehard was like, when he first saw Ragnarok, I don't like the fact they made Thor look so stupid. But I think it works. Like, when Thor's like trying to convince the Hulk to leave with him and he bounces the ball, hits Thor on the head.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if he did that in the comic book in the 70s or 80s, the readers would have literally burned down the comic book shop. But
yeah,
I think it works in this film. This movie got great ratings, 4 stars across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Rotten Tomatoes 89%. It got a lot of great reviews, but it's not really remembered. Nobody talks about it that much. Why do you think it kind of like has been forgotten?
I think maybe it's a little overshadowed by some of the some of the more original Disney movies like Little Mermaid or Beauty and the Beast. When I was looking up the Tarzan movie online on like Wikipedia and stuff, this apparently is considered the last movie of like the 90s Disney
Renaissance era. Yes, I agree.
What was the next film that they did? What was
Fantasia 2000, which was an experiment gone wrong, and then they did Dinosaur, which was the first one they did CGI, and that does not hold up at all. That looks like a PlayStation 1 game at this point.
I remember liking Fantasia 2000. I love the Al Hirschfeld sequence in that movie.
Yeah, no, it was great. The Al Hirschfeld sequence is great. It's just it's kind of sorry about my cat. I don't know if you saw that. The cat almost hit stop on the thing with its little.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, so I had to like grab it. Like no. Is Fantasia 2000? The reason I like Fantasia 2000 more than Fantasia 1 because it's shorter, which is better. I don't think you can do a movie like that 2 to 3 hours long. Which is
so long since I've seen Fantasia 2000. The main thing I remember about it is that Al Hirschfeld sequence set to Rhapsody in Blue.
Oh, which is an incredible sequence.
Yeah,
that's the next movie. But again, that didn't do the box office numbers, and that there's really no story in that.
Yeah,
and then Dinosaur, and then they do Emperor's New Groove, which is basically David Spade the movie, and it's kind of unwatchable at this point.
My best friend, he really talked up that movie to me, but I still have not seen it.
Which one?
Emperor's New Groove.
Do you like David Spade?
Not too much.
Okay, you're gonna hate this fucking movie.
I like Patrick Warburton though.
He's in it, but I mean, Dave literally for every line that Patrick Warburton has, David Spade has 17 more.
Oh, well, that's not good.
Yeah, I mean, he's literally the whole movie, and I
But
think they kind of got. I'm sorry, what you say?
they must have hit it off because they ended up doing that sitcom. What was it? Rules of Engagement.
Oh, and John Goodman's in this one too. He's
Oh, okay.
also an Emperor's New Groove.
All right. Well, John Goodman plus Patrick Warburton, that might outweigh the David Spade. I don't know.
No, a lot of the jokes. I think that's the movie with the most amount of jokes of any Disney film. There's literally, I think there's there's even like a joke about the villainess having a smelly vagina, which I couldn't believe they put in there. But
Okay.
well, they do it very like I can't remember it, but I'm like I can't believe they put that in there.
It's a tasteful, smelly vagina joke.
It's a tasteful, smelly vagina joke. Yeah, I think like there's a smell and like one of the characters is it coming from there and it points between her legs and she's like sitting on top of like something that's rotten. I don't know, but they think
okay.
They think it's her smelly vagina. Anyway, but
how did we get here?
That's for the Emperor's New Groove podcast where we talk about vagina smells. So this is Tarzan where everyone's vagina smells wonderful.
They're in the jungle, so that they all smell pristine.
They smell pristine. Nala has a special conditioner that she uses.
Yeah.
Nala is from Lion King. I don't know.
It's Kala.
Kala, okay, yeah, Kala, Nala. But yeah, like the other reason I think this movie isn't talked about much is I really feel like white people kind of have a guilt about Tarzan because it's like the white savior, like a white guy shows up and is better than everyone in Africa at something.
The weird thing is, okay, like I know in the Tarzan books, they were written in the early 1900s. Or well, they started in the early 1900s, and then he wrote them till at least the 40s or 50s, I think.
Yeah.
And so there are some stuff in there that has not aged well, and there's some stuff in there that we look at today and we're like, oh, well, that's fucking racist. And apparently Disney, they decided to avoid this problem completely by not showing any native Africans in the movie. So we have a movie where the entire film takes place in Africa, and there are no African people in it.
Yeah, there's no people.
That's weird.
Yeah.
That's really weird.
Well, because then you does he beat up the Africans for hunting his family, or does he join the Africans, or does what does he do with the Africans? And I don't think Disney. It's funny because Disney doesn't have a black lead in a movie until 2009.
I know. Which movie was that? It was like the first
Princess and the Frog.
Oh, that was it. Okay, she was the first black Disney princess. I remember.
But it's the first Disney movie where any black characters of consequence. Period. And they really haven't gone back to that.
Nuts.
Yeah.
That is so nuts.
And it's like they celebrate that Tarzan. Lion King on Broadway is all African American actors and stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's an all white voice cast in Lion King. And even in this movie. It's in Africa. Everyone's a white person.
I
Glenn
know.
Close, Lance Hendricks.
And I'd kind of forgotten that. I was like, oh, that's really weird.
Yeah. And they're doing they're trying to they're having Phil Collins. Even Phil Collins is doing some African-based stuff in some of the songs, but it's still Phil Collins. It's weird how they dipped into African culture and African American culture, but they still kept it all white. It's weird how they did that in these movies. And I feel like with Lion King, you can kind of get away with it because it's all animals, but Tarzan is kind of in your face. So I feel like that's why Disney doesn't celebrate it. This isn't on Disney Plus, which is why I gave my Voodoo password.
I didn't. Yeah. Well, maybe that's a rights thing because
I think it's a rights thing. I think it's not going to come on until 2021 or something. Which is insane to me because you would think you'd get all the classic movies.
Does Disney still do the thing where they put the movie into the vault for X number of years?
Well, I don't think you do it anymore because now you have Disney Plus. Although I wouldn't be surprised if after a while they start doing it on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I mean, because we're in the streaming world, so people have that expectation we get this thing whenever we want. Mm-hmm. And Disney's old formula was just we release this for a limited amount of time and then we put it away for. Which is great
if you're a person like me who loves collecting. I love collecting, but and I think they did themselves. I think they did themselves some damage. I didn't get to see Oliver and Company in theaters, and I didn't get to see the movie until I was 30 because that's the first thing they put out on DVD.
Mm-hmm.
And it's you kind of you kind of missed my childhood years where if I liked this movie, I would have got my parents to buy a shit ton of the toys.
Yeah, you miss your window. I thought it used to be like a 7-year cycle or something like that, but
It was, well, Little Mermaid changed everything because they weren't going to put Little Mermaid out, and then they put it out, and they sold so many VHS tapes. They were like, why are we waiting? And they would put the movies out right away. But the older movies, they still like cycled them in and out.
Okay,
But
that makes sense.
yeah, because once Little Mermaid came out, they were like, why are we not putting these on VHS? Like, just put them on, because they made. And there were a lot of movies that they either didn't put out or they staggered so much that I never got to see until I was in my 20s or 30s. And it's just ridiculous to me because if you had all this readily available and you had the merchandise, my parents would have went broke.
Yeah, it is too bad when you see something and you're like, oh, if I saw this at the right age, I would have loved this.
Yeah, like Fox and the Hound, I think would have been one of my favorite movies if I saw.
I saw that as a kid. I remember seeing that. Yeah.
What'd you think of that as a kid?
I remember liking it. I probably haven't seen it since I was a kid. So yeah, I like that a lot. I think Tim Burton worked on that movie as an animator.
It's a very dark movie. It's a very dark, fucked up movie. It's not it's not like typical. I always call when I'm doing the podcast, I called that era the dark era, which was Rescuers, that movie, and Black Cauldron, because those movies are just very.
I know
dark.
Black Cauldron flopped hard.
Oh yeah, I have a really good memory, and I was a super 80s kid. I mean, my parents had me tuned in on everything. I got any comic book I wanted. I controlled the TV from like when I was 3. I would grab the newspaper and look at what movies came out, and I don't even remember that movie. Well,
where did you grow up, Ray? Were you in the city or?
Yeah, Astoria. Yeah.
Okay.
So I had a lot of newsstands.
You're a New York kid from birth.
Yeah, and New York in the 80s, you had access to the arcades were all by my house. So, like you went to the newsstand, there's a rows of comics, rows of magazines, and rows of arcades.
Yeah.
And we would have to go there every day so my dad could get the paper or get my mom's lotto. So you would constantly be bombarded by geek shit just doing your daily activities.
Right. Yeah. And there was still a significant presence on the newsstand back then.
So I was able to just be like, God, buy me this comic. And that's how I was able to get in the comics. So I would just see them and I'd be like, well, give me. Now you have to like drag a kid to a store. And
they're not the impulse buys that they used to be.
Yeah, and the same thing with arcades. We would go, because I don't know if you remember this, but they used to put out the Sunday newspaper Saturday night. I don't know if you remember that they used to do this. But they would do that so my dad would get the paper so he could read it all Saturday night, and we would go and the arcade, and he'd have to like give me $1. So that's how I got into video games at such a young age, because it's right there in your face,
Right. Oh, so he'd read the paper while you were playing video games for an hour or whatever?
Yeah. Yeah, on the machines. But yeah, I grew up in New York City, and so everything was so close to me that I could really. But I don't remember my whole point is I was well in tune. I mean, I still have Rainbow Bright action figures. I was well in tune with 80s culture.
Yeah.
I don't remember fucking Black Cauldron.
This wasn't the Sword in the Stone. Was that when was that done? Was that
60s?
In the 60s? Okay.
Yeah, that's not good at all. I don't like that one.
Yeah.
60s. That's that one. So John, let me ask you a question. Would you recommend somebody show this movie to their kids nowadays?
Yeah, I think it still works. I think it's still entertaining. I can't think of much of anything where I'd be like, oh, I don't know if I want to show my kid that. Yeah, I think it would still work well.
I would like to see them do this in live action. I know maybe they won't because I think the rights to Tarzan are with probably like WB because they just made The Legend of Tarzan.
Well, I believe the Edgar Rice Burroughs estate still controls.
So he's not public domain yet, right?
It's a weird thing where it's like they control the character, but I believe the first few novels are in public domain.
Okay, so if I wanted to make a movie about the first novel, I could.
Yeah, I don't think you could call it Tarzan because I believe that name is still trademarked. So you would have to call it something generic like, Jungle Man or something maybe.
Yeah, Tarzan of the Apes is a 1914 novel by American writer Edgar Rice Burroughs. 24 books. It was published in the Pulp magazine, The All Story, in October 1912. Okay, wow,
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And in April, hold on. Oh no, it's just they published a special edition of it. Okay, I don't really care. I should actually read this book. I wonder if it's on Kindle.
I think you could probably find it on like Project Gutenberg.
What's that? Steve Gutenberg?
It's like where books that have shifted into the public domain, they'll put up the whole text of them. I think you can find the whole text of the novel online.
Okay, when you said Project Gutenberg, I thought like Steve Gutenberg was like assembling all these
he's
novels.
The one who put it together.
Okay.
It's all Steve Gutenberg. Steve Gutenberg, big bibliophile.
You know he's dating. Did you remember his American Pie?
Steve Gutenberg was in that?
Well, no. Remember the girl who got naked in American Pie?
Shannon Elizabeth?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if he's still dating her, but he was dating her as of like 5 years ago.
Really?
Okay. 6 years ago. Yeah. Which is a major coup for Steve Gutenberg in the year. Well, any year past 1990, that's a major coup for Mr. Steve Gutenberg, I think.
You know what? God bless Steve Gutenberg, man. He did that great episode of Party Down, so he gets a lifetime pass for me.
I think I met him. He's great, a little bit arrogant, but he's great. Well, he had Shannon Elizabeth on his arm back when I met him. He came to some private event back when he was the manager.
That's funny. I had no idea that they had dated.
Yeah, I don't know if they're still dating, but like I saw him, like, why is he with the girl? You know, because that's like the equivalent of like if like Miley Cyrus walked in with the guy from Teen Wolf, you know? Like, I don't know. Like, why are they together? And then when you find out they were dating, I'm like, oh, well, they're good for Steve.
I don't know. I don't keep up with much celebrity gossip, so I'm constantly surprised now of like, oh, those two people are dating. Oh, those two people are married. I had no idea.
I got to tell you, even people who kept up with celebrity gossip didn't realize Steve Gutenberg was dating anybody. So I don't think you're the only one.
Probably not.
Sean, where can people find you online if they want to follow you on Twitter or social media, or you tell them about your podcast? This is a different audience than my regular. This is like a more Disney animated.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if this was the same podcast that I did before, where we.
No, this is a completely different feed.
Comic book stuff. I do a podcast called the SNL Nerds with my friend Darren Patterson, who's also a stand-up comic. We watch episodes of Saturday Night Live when they have new episodes, and then we record a podcast the next day all about what we thought of the episode, and we go on weird tangents as you and I did today. And that's on the Non-Productive podcast network. But you can just Google SNL Nerds and you should be able to find us. We have a Twitter account, SNL Nerds Show. And you can follow me on Twitter at Trumbull Comic, TRUMBULL, and the word comic.
And I'll have a link to your Twitter in the episode description, so please check that out. You can click on it and follow him.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Guys, if you enjoyed this episode, if you're a fan of John Trumbull or Tarzan, or I don't know, you're just a racist, and you liked, I guarantee you there is some alt-right group that has this whole message about Tarzan. I guarantee there's some alt-right group that is, you know what I'm saying, like that has put Tarzan as like.
Yeah, they're probably there's.
Interpreted him as like their like leader or something.
And I think there's stuff like that in the original novel too, because it was still like, the white man's natural superiority, and I mean that was kind of common in the literature of the day.
Yeah. But if you are a fan of Tarzan, you discovered this podcast, you haven't heard this before, but you like Disney, I've done episodes on every Disney animated film from Snow White up until this. You can check out the archives. It's a different comedian every episode, and every episode touches on different things, as you can tell. Whether it's Fox and the Hound, or whether it's Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, they all touch on different themes, because all these movies, even though people think every Disney movie is about princesses, they're all very, very different. They all warrant interesting discussion, like this movie did. And you can follow me in the archives. You can also follow the podcast on Instagram at Goots' Disney Pod. And also at Goots' Disney Pod on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram at Ray Goots. And if you enjoy this, please subscribe, write us a review. And next week, tune in. We're going to be reviewing Fantasia 2000 with Kyle Lewis. Have you ever met Kyle Lewis?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
Am I missing out?
Yeah, you're a disgrace. I think you're missing out. No, he's a good dude.
That a lot.
He's a good dude. Actually, John Minus doing Atlantis with me in a few weeks.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Mike Mignola did designs for that movie, so that's a cool one.
That's so cool. It's so funny because I was watching this. I watched all the special features. I watched the special features of that one, and that one they were like, we wanted to make a Disney action film like Star Wars or a Marvel comic. And it's so funny. They keep saying that not John Lasseter because he was in control, but like Don Hahn. They keep saying Star Wars, Marvel, Star Wars, Marvel. Like, how funny is it that this fucking company owns both only 19 years later?
Oh, you know what? Before we totally wrap things up, and I know we're getting toward the end, I want to give a shout out to the animator who designed Tarzan, Glenn Keane.
He's awesome.
He did an amazing job with the design for Tarzan. And
Glenn Keane is one of the greatest animators I think out in the world.
Yeah, and I was reading, like, apparently he initially thought, oh, this is going to be super easy because it's just a dude in a loincloth. But then he realized, oh, no, I have to get all the anatomy right and draw all the muscles working the right way. But the design is amazing. And his animation and the posing are so fluid and so dynamic. Just any shot with Tarzan in it is just a joy to look at, man.
Oh, yeah, it's just incredible. You know, those 90s guys, that should be the name of their sitcom if they ever do like that. The 90s animators, you get to know them a lot because they're in a lot of special features of the older films.
Yeah.
Like Lady and the Tramp and stuff. And they really, you know, Disney loves the 90s. They love to do special features in the 90s. You don't know shit about Chicken Little. They're not really going to let you know about those guys. But they really want you to know who worked on these 90s films. And there are just some incredible animators. The amount, you know, it's a shame to me that, you know who Scorsese is, you know who the Russo brothers are. We even know who, like, Jack Kirby is. But it's a shame to me that, like, Glenn Keane, and there's a French guy, I don't know his name, but he's a very thick French accent that's in a lot, he was in a lot, he animated Scar. You don't know their names. Like, I've watched hour special features with these people, and I can't remember their names half the time.
And the interesting thing is, Glenn Keane, he's actually a second-generation cartoonist because he's the son of Bill Keane, who did the Family Circus.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's crazy. Have you ever tried to do animation, John, or you just strictly...
I had a little training in animation at the Kubert School. The first year there, they you take an intro to animation class. But no, I was still much more in love with comic books back then. So
okay.
So I have a little bit of an animation background, but not enough to really make a go of it.
You know what's wild to me? That a lot of these new DC films are written by J.M. I'm going to say the name wrong.
DeMatteis.
DeMatteis, okay. Which I kind of thought he was kind of retired, but he is the main guy writing most of these DC animated films. I'm not sure if he wrote this one. If he did, I think he needs therapy. Which one? The Apocalypse War that just came out. But it's funny to me that, like, they've gone to him as, like, it's funny to see these people have second careers of where they're in animation. And I know Jack Kirby did some work for Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah, J.M. DeMatteis, he actually wrote a few episodes of the Justice League show in the DC animated universe. So he's worked with Bruce Timm and that bunch.
Before. Yeah, he wrote Red Son. I know he wrote that. When I saw that name at the end, I was like, wow, he wrote that.
Oh, that was Mark Millar.
No, he wrote the script.
For the animated version.
The animated version. Yeah,
I thought you meant the comic.
In ways, he made it better because he took out a lot of, like, Mark Millar's Hot Topic, I'm Angry at the World.
Yeah, shit, so. He was also the guy who adapted. He did the Justice League adaptation for the Man Who Has Everything, the Alan Moore Superman story. And
I know he wrote the Adam. I don't know if this came with it because I bought the digital version, but I know he wrote the Adam Strange short that also came out today.
Cool.
I don't know if he did write Dark Side War. I love you. You're a great writer, but you need therapy if you wrote this. You really need to see someone.
I know he did write the animated version of Red Son because I remember him posting about that on Twitter. I can't say I've seen him post about this one, so I'm guessing.
Okay. Not him. Whoever wrote this, I don't care what corporate. By the way, everyone, I'm gonna be see Apocalypse War just to witness what. I don't know who wrote this, but whoever wrote this. I don't care if corporate gave you these mandates, you still need therapy. You need lots and lots of therapy, okay? Because
I guess I'm going to have to see this movie just because it sounds so bizarre.
I want you to see this movie because I want to see the discussion on your wall. Because you have more. I'll write about comic books on Facebook. I get like one like, and somebody will be like, "Oh, is that the cartoon?" I'm like, "No, it's the comic." I like the cartoon. When Yeah. Okay, great. But
I'm friends with
I would love to see your thoughts on this while you have my voodoo password. And I would love to see what people on your wall would say to some of the stuff that happens because it's a lot.
Okay. Well, yeah, maybe I'll check it out then.
Okay, guys. So thank you so much for tuning in. Again, next week, Kyle Lewis, Fantasia 2000. Thank you for joining us, John.
Thanks.